Hi. My name is Ellen Weber. I was born and raised in St. Paul, Minnesota, as the second daughter of Randy and Michelle Weber. I have three siblings, an older sister, Kylie, and my younger twin brothers, Ben and Andrew. I sat down last week to write this and reflected on the many moments in my life that impacted me. I love looking back at my life and seeing the connections of how choices impacted the path I took. But for a while, I called this listening to my yes. I described it as an internal voice that was leading me. But while writing this, I realized what has led me is actually deeply listening to what my body is telling me. I have learned what it means to feel belonging, to feel community, to feel anger, fear, joy, grief. That listening to my body has allowed me to intentionally listen to what my embodied path looks like. So I'm going to share a few stories with you. I do want to offer a trigger warning. I do talk about death and a little bit of violence, so just to be aware. One of the first memories I have about what community feels like is going to my brother's school in Rondo, in St. Paul, and learning American Sign Language. My brother Andrew is deaf, and as we grew up, we learned sign language by following him through his schooling. I remember the big slide we got to go down when we signed a word right. I remember the yummy pizza we had when all our separate age groups came together. I remember storytelling, both voiced and signed, after our pizza. It was a place of community with a wide range of people who are racially diverse, economically diverse, whose first languages weren't the same, who normally wouldn't hang out with each other, but were brought together to learn to communicate with their loved ones, with their whole bodies. If you know ASL, you know it is a deeply embodied language and culture. The first experience of grief was when my grandma Peg died. She died 3 days before my third birthday. And there is some connection I have with her that continues to be an energy I carry with her. When she was alive, I refused to eat anything other than what was on her plate. My plate could have the same exact thing, but nope, I had to have her plate and sit on her lap in order to eat. She was someone that made people feel loved, cared for, and like they belonged. People that felt othered seemed to find her, and she embraced them with arms open. When I talk about Peg, there is something in my body that comes alive, and I can't explain it, like she is on this journey with me. Throughout elementary school and middle school, my brothers played baseball. I was my brother Andrew's interpreter as he played. I felt like I was part of the team and held pride in being the bridge to help my brother feel a sense of belonging. Did he really just pick me because it was embarrassing to have my parents sign for him? Maybe. But reflecting back, though, for me, it impacted my awareness of how the world is not made for him and with him in mind, and created an opening for me to have a better understanding of how systems of oppression are created and upheld. I learned that my body has the power to do good or do harm. My first year of high school, we had a speaker that shared the power of saying hello and how sometimes it actually can save a life. This stuck with me through high school and beyond, and I would get to school early, usually like 15 minutes early, and sit down by my locker. I enjoyed the quiet, the slowness of the morning in the hallway, and learned the power of noticing whose parents worked early, who had practiced before school, who were also the morning people. Did my brother love it when I went away to college so he could get to school much later? Absolutely. My senior year, I walked into one of my classes late, and I caught the end of a speaker's talk. He mentioned water, girls' education, and an internship. And there was something in my body that was telling me, you need to be in relationship with whatever he was talking about. And so I applied for the internship and got it. That feeling of yes led me on a journey that I never expected. I learned about international development, the white savior complex, girls' education in Kenya, event planning, development work for nonprofits, and the power of storytelling. It led me to spending a month in Nairobi, Kenya, after my first year of college, spending time with girls my own age, listening and learning their stories. A couple weeks ago, in late September, one of those women, I had the honor of hosting here in my own house, and we have maintained a 10-year friendship. My body telling me yes, and me leaning into learning what that yes felt like, opened up my eyes, mind, and heart to an amazing community that lives across the world from me. In the fall of my senior year of high school, I experienced a loss that shook me to my core. It was October 3rd, 2011. I was in my silver loft bed ready to fall asleep when I got a strange feeling in my body to text my friend Anna. My phone was below my bed, and so I told myself I would see her in the morning and fell asleep. The next day, between third and fourth period in the hallway by the chapel, I passed by where I would see her, and she wasn't there. I briefly was reminded of the strange feeling I had the night before. I headed to ceramics, and after the bell rang and we were seated, my teacher read an announcement to the whole class that I barely remember, because in walked one of the deans shouting, Is Ellen Weber here?" I raised my hand, and he asked me to step out into the hallway. My other friend Kelsey was there waiting for me. He took us away from the door and explained that the night before, my friend's parents had died. Her father had killed her mother and then killed himself. The shock and disbelief kept us out of class that day and eventually led us to go see Anna and her siblings. While I had experienced death before, this was one of the hardest times where I learned to walk alongside people whose reality I could do nothing about, sitting in deep grief and sadness in our bodies together. In that same year, my friend Laura was diagnosed with cancer. Laura and I knew each other since kindergarten. I spent many days after school bringing her homework that year. I watched a community of care form around her and her family that year. I also witnessed how amazing my mother was at being with people who are experiencing that grief and sadness. She knew exactly what to say and how to release some of the hard emotions that people hold in their bodies, whether it be through tears or laughter. At the end of my senior year, we gave senior speeches. Mine was called the Hello Life. I talked about listening to the yes that was inside of me, this feeling that led me to say hello or pay attention to this or walk there or do that, do this. At the end of it, the class offered affirmations to the person who spoke. I remember after mine, Monica asked the class, "I don't know who else receives holiday texts from Ellen?" And the entire class raised their hand. It was true. I sent out holiday texts to everyone in my phone. I now have a better relationship with my phone, and the need to send out those texts has passed. But at the time, I wanted people to be seen, to be known, and to feel like they belonged. Watching my classmates smile when they raised their hand and receiving those texts, and the shock on my teacher's face, began this knowing inside of me the power of belonging. This desire to explore the feeling continued throughout college. I was a community advisor and RA in college. I loved living in community and getting to know all different types of people. My second year of being a CA, during move-in, I was in charge of being in the elevator to help usher people on and off. I rode the elevator up and down what felt like a million times that day. I learned names, told short jokes, gave directions, calmed students and parents alike. I am fairly good at remembering names, and that day, I learned many. In the following weeks, I saw many of those students that I helped on the elevator throughout that day. I would often remember their name and say hello. They looked at me with a strange look at their look, asking themselves, "Do we know each other?" And I would say, "I was in the elevator during move-in." "Oh yeah," they would say, "like you remember my name?" It gave me a sense of pride knowing people's names and saying hello. Part of that was I felt a deep sense of belonging when someone did the same for me, of how together we can create a culture of belonging and each of us have a part in that creation. Fast forward a couple years, Laura eventually was diagnosed with terminal cancer, our second year of college. We spent the year when she felt well doing crafts, going on adventures, laughing, crying, spending lots of time in the purple room. I remember clearly my junior year, her dad calling me, telling me it was time, and that if I wanted to say goodbye, to come over. I sat next to her in her room, and as she wheezed in and out. "Hi, Webby," she said. My mom was at the foot of the bed, and eventually she kicked my mom out of the room. I sat there and held her hand as she dozed back asleep. Later on that week, on September 20th, 2014, her dad called again and said she passed away surrounded by her family. I was supposed to go visit her that day, along with my friend Colette. I remember catching Colette in my arms when I went to pick her up and told her the news. We went over there and I saw Laura. She looked so peaceful and not in pain anymore. There was a drastic difference of what her body was experiencing that comforted my own body. All of those stories happened before I was 21, and I deeply believe have impacted my path moving forward and what I said yes to. Yes to people, yes to understanding injustices, yes to listening to stories that are different than mine, yes to pushing back against systems that say people don't belong, yes to listening to what my body was feeling and experiencing. It was leading me to deeply relational work that I can do in my body. So I did AmeriCorps with College Possible. I was a parent specialist working with families involved with child protection. I was a Caddy Waiver case manager, a development associate, a high school speech coach, director of service learning, director of youth and young adult ministry, elementary school physical education teacher, and now here, operations program associate here at Augsburg. Throughout those experiences, I became more deeply aware of my own body, my relationship with it, understanding what it was telling me, what others experienced when my body walked into a room, which emotions I was feeling were actually because I was taught to feel certain feelings about things or people or places and not others. It's a journey of learning and unlearning that I will never be done with. My path at one point I thought would be straightforward, but listening to my body has taught me that it isn't straightforward. But what continues to move me is this pulling of this creating belonging and community and wanting to be in spaces that create that and being surrounded by people that value that, which has led me to what I believe is the soul work I do actually outside of Augsburg. You can show. 3 years ago, the softball league I was a part of went on hiatus. Out of a desire to not lose the community, a group of 4 of us decided to start our own organization. And so Rec Leaguer was born, an all-skills adult sports league focused on building community through sports. We have a variety of leagues, host tournaments, socials, and pop-up events. This work deeply matters to me, and my body continues to tell me to lean in. Each and every week, someone comes up and tells me how important this community is for them, how grateful they are for it, and how much fun they're having. I have been told it's saved 2 people's marriage, that it allowed them to stay in the state, that it made them feel less alone. Someone felt comfortable enough to tell me that they had a mass show up on a scan and that they were scared, so we checked in weekly. Someone had just moved into the area and were nervous about making friends. They often share their dreams about what this community could be and the hopes that they have about it because they see how they can play a part in how it is created. In a world that wants us to be competitive, individualistic, and desires us to uphold certain systems, it's work like this that creates better places for people to belong. For us to be reminded that we are interdependent, that we are made to be in community with each other, that my liberation is tied up into yours. And I have found that this work is the work of my life. And I can see how my body has led me to it. Creating places of belonging in a world that tries to tell us in so many ways that we are not enough and we need to be in competition with one another for a spot, when in fact, we are enough and there is enough. So I will continue to try and listen to where my body is leading me.